Welcome back. On Wednesday, Governor J.B. Pritzker gave his State of the State address sharing his plans for the state budget. Now joining us today to share his thoughts is Senator Li Arellano Jr. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, first, what are your thoughts on learning the budget is projected to be $1.7 billion instead of the $3.2 billion that was projected last year?
Yeah, so the governor and his team seem to have changed the the revenue assumptions for growth, and that eased up the pressure on the burden. On the legislative side, we have our own analysts looking at it. We hope those numbers stay true because it'll make our job a little easier. So that's good. My biggest concern, though, I know the governor likes to call it a balanced budget. It's not, because it's not a true pension payment based on what actuaries recommend. And when you think about Illinois, how do we get so deeply in debt when we have a constitutional requirement to have a balanced budget? And it's through not fully paying into the pensions. That's how we got here. And so that is probably my biggest concern. I don't want to pass debt on to my kids. I don't like that it was passed on to me. You know, under the Constitution, it really shouldn't be happening. So that's the part I push back on.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Republicans are appreciating the rollback on free health care for non-citizens.
Yeah.
So how will you ensure this proposal happens and we see it all the way, it's seen all the way through?
Right, that's a great question. Part of it is just advocacy and watching what comes through bills. Obviously, what's said right now, that's just a speech. We have to make sure it gets codified into law and into the budget. And that'll take place through the committee process and then, of course, on the floor over the course of the next few months. But May is when the big time we'll have to lock it down. That's when it needs to go into the budget, and we'll be there quite a bit in Springfield making sure that happens.
Okay, thank you. And so in a statement you released on Wednesday, you mentioned Governor Pritzker's tax hike on job creators. So can you elaborate on what that means and what you would like to see done?
Right. And so some of them, there's some things that impact casinos. There's some things that impact the marijuana industry. And one of the reasons that has ripple effects is there's already been some criticisms that the taxes for marijuana in Illinois are very high, and it's pushing people into the black market. And so one of the things I struggle with is if we're going to draw more taxes from there, the so-called sin taxes, right? That doesn't mean it doesn't have repercussions. It doesn't mean it won't have issues. There are, casinos that are economic impact, so you got to look at that. But also when you're dealing with the marijuana trade, Illinois botched that several years in a row, and I have concerns about how it's still getting handled. So those are the kind of things that have ripple effects in the community.
All right, well, Senator, thank you so much for joining us today. We will share this full interview over on our website, ciproud.com.